Hello, and welcome. I am Robyn.
And I'm Gil, and this is Rockin the Love.
Yes, it
Welcome,
is.
everybody. Thanks so
Welcome.
much for coming and joining us today on this lovely Wednesday afternoon. What are we talking about
Yay!
today? Are we talking about relationships again? Oh, goodness.
At the end of the day, that's all there is, right?
That's all there is. Yeah.
Even if you're only left with yourself, that's the most important relationship there is. So we are Rockin the Love, and we are married couple. That's what we are. It's weird, isn't it?
So don't hold it against us.
But it's weird. We've lived apart now for a year.
Yeah, that is odd. I mean, that's certainly a big change.
Right. So we
Yeah.
we are married. Gil lives in New Mexico, and I live in Oakland, California. So
And we get to navigate that and see how that is. You know, we started as a long distance relationship.
we did.
So so we
Perhaps
sort of
we
come
weren't
full
specific
circle.
enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
anyway,
so we are married, and we are doing a show about relationships because Rockin' the Love is really about Rockin' the Love everywhere in every relationship we have, right?
absolutely. And so we do this and we want everyone else to be a part of it. We'd love to have you ask questions, to give your comments, then obviously go and like our pages and those kind of things so that we can continue to reach out to you easily. And we do something different every week. And this week we have a guest for you, which is going to be really fun. We're excited about doing that. So, hey, Bonnie's here with us today. Hi, Bonnie. Thanks for coming. We're going to have some fun. Is Bonnie coming to us from Ireland right now?
We never know where Bonnie's coming from. She is either in Ireland or in Northern California. Bonnie Gonzalez has a show on New Thought Media Network. She is our doula for prayer. I mean, for
For grief.
Sorry, which includes a lot of prayer. Anyway, but so we're gonna have a good time today. We're gonna talk to our guest Brian Kurtz, who is an author and a healer and an all-around good guy. And the powers that be say Bonnie is omnipresent. So true. So true. All right. So
She's in California. Yesterday was Ireland. What's tomorrow, Bonnie?
she's stuck in California for a week or so. Then she's off to
Okay.
Mexico. Okay, so enough about all of that. She's off to the Chapala conference, though, which you guys, I'm sure, that have been watching New Thought Media have seen the commercials, and it's going to be a fantastic event in Jalisco, near Guadalajara, and at Lake Chapala. And if you don't go this year, you should definitely think about going next year. Great speakers, great workshops, and lots of fun. So, how was your week, Mr. Olmsted?
My week was good. A lot going on. I had special visitor for the week. It was really fun. Our little goddaughter, who's now 23, came to visit, and we had a really fun time. We just did some oddball things around town. She went and did some stuff on her own. Yesterday, we went to the top of the mountain, the Sandia Peak, and got to do a little hiking and just observing. And wow, what a fantastic experience. We were noticing when we came back, like the mountains are there and they look big, but when you go up to the top, it feels like they're way bigger.
Really?
It's like, wow, we're really up there. So it's kind of an interesting experience. Plus, they're very steep.
Really?
It's a quick climb, let me tell you. And it was rather fun having our 6 foot 5 inch, whatever he is now, godson as well, who was going, okay, don't tell me about, don't make jokes about this thing. because we're on this tram car hanging above the canyon, and he's hanging onto the sides. Okay.
Wow.
It's pretty funny. But we had fun. We had a good time. Very good time. And so it was fun. How was your week?
My week is good. I feel like it's kind of I don't have anything exciting to say about it, but it's one of those weeks where I think I've been kind of amidst all this chaos of things going on. I've been kind of contemplative. So I feel like I'm having a lot of revelations and movement and things like that. So it's good, and it's not always comfortable for other people. I acknowledge. Um, like for example, the whole family's taking a trip to New Mexico to see Gil, and I declared that I was not going, which is hard because I really want to see Gil, but I just have to balance out the way my time is and make sure that it's the best thing, not only for them but for me. And I usually don't factor myself into the equation. So for me it's a big giant movement. One giant step for me, one giant step for mankind. So
Yeah.
so my week is
Yeah.
good. Do you have any good news?
I do have some good news. I saw an article about a veterinary conference that ended up turning itself into a clinic for pets of homeless people. So they were having a conference at a big hotel, and then they ended up seeing the various pets around because they were in downtown area, and they invited folks to come in, and they gave attention to those pets and figured out what they might need and offered them medication and that kind of stuff, and made all the pets healthier. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is
They
cool.
utilized their time together and all of that, and instead of being selfish with it, which some of us are tempted to do, they really turned it the other direction. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, that's interesting because mine is actually about animals as well. And mine is about a man who woke up from a coma, and he was devastated when he learned that his dog had gotten lost. And so when he woke up, after waking up, people told him, go on Facebook, put the thing out, put the notices out. And he'd been in a coma for 3 weeks, and he had adopted a dog after he quit being a truck driver, and so they were really super bonded. And so they took to Facebook and all the posting type things, and something came up that they had spotted his dog in Dallas, which I think I forget where he was, but anyway. And it was a woman who runs a dog rescue in Dallas had spotted the dog, and after she found out who it belonged to, she did everything possible to make it happen to get the dog back to him. And she said when they were reunited that she said it was the most emotional thing that she had ever seen, and like she could see how bonded they were. And yeah, this was a dog that he wouldn't ever leave his side and had been with him the whole time. And so it was good for all of them, and for her it was her reason to keep going and doing pet rescue. And yeah, so
Yeah.
and he was so grateful, and she was his angel bringing the dog back. So
And our relationships extend beyond our human neighbors. I mean, even just communing with the trees and the rocks up there yesterday, there's a feeling of connection which is different, and yet really powerful and good.
well, and it goes back to my good news of last week when I shared that fish story.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I shared this story about a man who is friends with a fish and meets the fish every year. It's too long a story. You just have to watch last week's episode. But it was so fascinating. And from there, I saw other stories, and people sent me stories about a man who's best friends with a butterfly, and people who are. So, I mean, it's so interesting, but just to watch and to see, like, really just bringing that into awareness that it is more than, you just said, it is more than just people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And relationships run deep.
Yes,
They run
they
deep.
do. They do. They
And
do.
I think we just skip over that. And that's part of why I'm so excited about today. We get to really look at what a relationship is with ourselves and how that relationship impacts the rest of our lives. Because it's so, from hanging out with some younger people and observing some events recently, I realize how much I think we often start out totally not understanding that, totally not getting it.
And is
It
it not
takes us a while to figure it
understanding?
out.
Is it not understanding or not even being aware?
Yes. Yes, I
I
would
mean,
say
we
that.
don't, it's like the same when we have these conversations about the kids. We don't factor in where they're at and what's important to them at that moment, and how, we're like, why don't they just do this? And why don't they do that? And how come they don't know how to do this? When it's not even in their consciousness.
Not even on their radar.
Not even on
Yeah.
the radar. And so much of that is true for all of us as, human beings, and just moving through this
Yeah.
life in this body and moment of time.
Takes some conscious paying attention, I believe.
It does. And thank God we have an expert here to talk about it. So grab your water, do whatever you need to do to get back here in just a few minutes to welcome Brian Kurtz. And we'll see you right back here on New Thought Media Network. Hello and welcome back to Rockin the Love. Here I am, Robyn.
And I'm Gil, and we are happy to have you today. We're happy to share with you our theme of the day, which is Access the Real You, which we will clue you in on as the title of a book by our guest, Brian Kurtz.
Welcome.
And I want to say a couple words about Brian before we bring him on. First of all, I met Brian when I moved here to Albuquerque, and he's one of those people that comes on really softly and just kind of fades into the, okay, that's not true. He's really friendly and excited about life and excited about everything going on. And over the time that I've been here, he's had the opportunity to finish this book, worked really hard. Besides all of the work that he's done over his life in healing and supporting other people. And it's just really fun to know him and have him a part of our spiritual center. And I'm excited to have him come join us today on Rockin the Love. So let's welcome Brian.
Woohoo. Hi, Brian.
Hey, you guys. Thank you very much for having me in.
You're welcome.
And you do have the rockinest music of any podcast on the internet, near as I can tell.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. So, Brian, give us just a nutshell of why you wrote this book. What is it? Why'd you write it?
Okay, so over the last 8 or 9 years, I've produced these things called Soul Connection Workshops, which was all about getting people connected with themselves. And in that namaste place, if you will, that divine light place, helping others to connect in that same place with people in front of them. So I would feed people these really personal prompts and let people stay in constant eye contact for about 1 hour and 15 minutes while I'm feeding them these really intense prompts and speaking to people that they may not even have known before they sat down together to do this. And what was happening is people were getting a bit intimidated sometimes by the prompts. So I realized that even though pretty much everyone's getting the result I was seeking, some people were having a hard time with it. So I created this thing I call the Real You conversation, which enables people to notice that there's stuff going on in here while I'm in contact with this person in front of me. And I have to drop this stuff off to be in better contact with the people in front of me. So I developed this thing called the Real You conversation, and eventually it became a book. And years ago, there was a book by Michael Singer called The Untethered Soul. And I had already been busy getting all the ideas together for this book. And when that book came out, it's like, that son of a gun stole my book. And then a couple of years later, a friend of mine said, look, he wrote a great book. He's famous now. You still need to write your book. So, okay, eventually I'll get to my book. I moved to Albuquerque about 15 months ago and started the book in earnest and finished it around December. And that's where the book comes from. It's all about helping us to drop the stuff that's not really us, that we might think is us or that we identify with. And in dropping that, everything else becomes available. Like what we are as a soul occupying a human body and physical form, but we're not our brains. Like you got your brain moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, but then there's the noticer of the brain moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. And interestingly enough, if you can be the noticer of that brain moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, you're actually separating what I call the real you from that and grounding yourself in a place of stillness, watching that which is not still. And the way you access stillness is by noticing what's not still. Very counterintuitive. Everyone says, Brian, I can't meditate because I can't stop my brain. I said, you don't need to stop your brain. Just notice what your brain's doing, and you've actually separated the real you from the brain, and you're in the place you want to be. At that point, anything can become a meditation. Heel toe of a walk can become a meditation. Watching the leaves blow in the trees can be a meditation. Any and everything can become a meditation if we are in that awareness place. And that's the key to the whole game, is being in the awareness, not that you have, but the awareness that you are. And in the awareness of the awareness that I am, all this other stuff becomes possible.
The awareness is really the being in the moment.
Exactly.
So Bonnie is asking Brian, why do we have these ongoing mental conversations while engaged with others? What purpose does it serve?
This is a really good question. Thank you, Bonnie. So what happens is, before we're even born, before we even pop out of our mom, there's a brain in there processing whatever it's receiving. Hi, I'm floating around in this wonderful, cushy little place. Next thing you know, I pop out of my mom. There's bright lights and people laughing or crying or do whatever they're doing. And the doctors are okay and everybody's celebrating. And from that moment on, the brain is in hyper overdrive, trying to process input. And because our brain remembers everything that's ever happened to us, we identify with that because it remembers every thought and every thought about the thought, every judgment and evaluation about the thought that we've ever had. But that's not us. But we don't know that until we know that. So like the purpose that it serves, the brain does a lot of things. And it remembers things, I think, as a protection mechanism. So, hey, if I did that and I got hurt, I don't want to do that again. The problem is the brain is gathering stuff from a bunch of different areas, some of which may be correct, but some of which may not be correct, or maybe it lacks context. So what applied appropriately and protectively in one situation may actually just be a wall that's preventing us from full encounter and full engagement with whoever or whatever we're in the middle of now. So I think the brain serves its purpose, but when we need to get in touch with who we really are, it's in the way. Like if I'm programming in my navigator to get from where I live over to the Center for Spiritual Living today, I need to know where to turn left, where to turn right, how far to go. And my brain's great at that. But when I need to come to a fork in the road of life and ask, which way do I go in the fork of the road of my life? This is not nearly as effective, I don't think, as this. So if you can tune into your heart, your soul, whatever that thing, whatever you want to call that divinity that we are, I think that serves us a lot more effectively in the long run. Well, and that's what the book's all about.
And some might say it does serve us more in the long run, even when we're doing the navigation. We're just not ready to step out of that comfort zone. We have rules around that.
Yes. And again, it's brain chatter. The brain's trying to do its best to protect us, to make us more efficient, to make us more effective. But ultimately, if we are spiritual beings and our body is a vessel housing that spirit, the most effective thing we can do for almost anything is to be the vessel. In the dedication in my book, I mention a healer that I met many years ago named Colin Lambert. He's passed by now, but I watched him work with a client in a workshop where I knew the guy and I knew the people who'd brought the guy, and he'd been in a wheelchair for 25 years. And after Colin Lambert worked on him, he literally got up and walked across the room, having been paralyzed from the waist down for 25 years. And everything that Lambert was doing was what I was doing and what I had been shown in what I'll call divine downloads, gesturing, thought processes. He was doing the same thing I was doing, but I'm working on backs and knees and stomach aches, and he just resolved paralysis or help that occur in another human being. It's like, okay, so what are you doing that I'm not doing? What are you being that I'm not being? He said, you just need to be a clearer vessel. I didn't really know everything about what that meant then. I still don't know all the details, but I've learned a lot. And the thing about being the noticer of your brain chatter, being the noticer of what's going on in your body, being the noticer of what's going on around you, I'm not my brain, I'm not my body, I'm not my circumstances. I am the noticer of all of those. The day I die, the day my body ceases to function, the noticer will still be there noticing the body on the hospital bed or the floor, wherever I may happen to be when my body stops functioning. But that noticer continues. That noticer is forever. And the more time we can spend in that noticer place, the more we get grounded in that place that is beyond time, beyond space, beyond physicality, beyond fear, beyond concerns of death. Any of the stuff that would be in the way for us simply is not as big as that. That's why I wrote the book, to let people know that when you get tuned into that bigger part of yourself, you're literally invincible, no matter what's going on in your life.
Well,
and that's a pretty powerful place to be.
Yeah, it is. And what I'm hearing you say, I'm thinking about people and their intuition and all kinds of things like that. And, people who are psychic or, and what they always tell you is, because people are like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to lean into it. I don't, and everybody always tells you just lean into it more, and
yeah,
which in essence is become a clearer vessel.
Exactly. And the thing is, when someone says, I don't, I can't, that's actually this saying that.
Right.
And when we can distinguish between this and the real us, the real you, everything becomes more available and peace is more readily available. And it doesn't mean that things aren't still going to come up, but who we're being about it when it comes up can be completely different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Bonnie asks, is it true that 90% of our thoughts are the same thoughts? So that would...
Oh gosh, I don't know about a percentage, but I can tell you that I know when I'm noticing my brain chatter, it's the same stuff all day. What about, what if, how
right.
about, but what if this happens? Yeah, it's the same stuff.
So she's asking what's effective in releasing these thoughts?
Okay, so here's
there's
the thing.
Awareness and is there more?
Got it. So in the noticing your thoughts, you're separating the real you from them. You can begin to distance the real you from the brain chatter. Brain's still going, but you can distance yourself from that and drop the volume level, as it were. The brain is still going to be the brain doing what it does. Like your brain's going to pump out stomach acid all day, every day, like your lungs pump air and your heart pumps blood. But you're not your brain, you're the noticer of it. So ultimately, you're going to get so good at it if you practice the principles that the brain chatter almost doesn't matter anymore. It's just your brain. Like
That's
it's
good.
The kid in the back seat on your family vacation going, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So something comes up for me, and that is you and I are doing a class together right now called Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life.
A great class, for the record.
Well, but I'm bringing it up because how does that fit, or does it fit in with this concept of noticing and the how is thinking your brain, is your brain, what's that connection there?
So it's about what you're identifying with. There's there's the brain, which is generating all this stuff all day. But then there, I think, is your soul, the vessel, which is able to tune in and receive that which really serves. So in Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life, I differentiate between what I'll call the brain's ruminations and the soul's receiving that which really serves. So, for example, anything that's comparative, the brain operates like a hard drive. It has to separate everything from everything else so that it can store it for later and give you something to compare later. But soul, heart, knowing doesn't separate anything. It's all in the oneness. So anytime we can distinguish between brain chatter and soul talk, there's no comparative nature. There's no good, bad, right, wrong, up, down, you, me, us, them, Democrat, Republican. you want to get political, right? It's all this stuff. People who understand how to manipulate people throw comparisons, be they accurate or false, to keep the brain occupied. But ultimately, when we can distance ourselves from all of that and ground ourselves in this other place, we're able to receive, so that changing our thinking, it's not so much changing what our brain is doing as changing who we're being and what we're listening to and listening for.
Yeah,
so
change what we're aligning with.
Exactly. And when we align with soul, we're able to receive knowledge, that place where you know that you know, as opposed to I know because. Like, if there's a because, there's a justification which the brain needs. But when you know that you know, like, you know you love Robyn. Robyn knows that she knows she loves you, and you're a year apart, and yet you still got what you've got, because you're locked into that place, as opposed to the, ooh, what if, oh, but how about, none of that really matters as much as you know that you love each other. So this connection to yourself and touching your own divinity, touching the light that we are, enables us to touch that light in another person.
And I think for me also, I would say that even when I go to the question, like, you know, if somebody said to me, do you love Gil? If I go, do I love Gil? That's the brain. But if I stop and pause and just take a breath, then the answer comes through me. So it's not.
And there's no doubt, there's no questioning, there's no any of that.
No comparison.
There's no comparison.
Or even when I stop to judge whoever's asked the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, but really, when I'm like, well, a stupid question, or it's the brain going on. And Bonnie says, thank you. I will give these thoughts less attention and power over the present moment.
Very good. Thank you, Bonnie. Good work. And I noticed Wayne commenting, it's safe to be who I am. It is, because there's no bigger safety than knowing that nothing can threaten you, nothing can be in conflict with you. And when we're in that divine place, there's no conflict. There's no reason for conflict.
Right.
Everything just is, and it's perfect. Even if it doesn't necessarily look the way we think it ought to look here, it is what it is.
Right. Right.
If we're divine emanations of spirit, everything that happens in our space happens because it's supposed to, for our highest good.
Right. And I remember, actually, I learned that. I mean, I probably learned it way before this, but I learned that in 6th grade when my science teacher said, a thing is what it is. And I got my money's worth out of that. Like, my mom would get mad at me for saying, be like, thing is what it is. But I mean, I wasn't really trying to be as smart as she thought I was. I was just like, it just is. It is, and now it was, and why are we here? You know, like, why are we still on it? Yeah, okay, I was spoiled in that moment, or whatever it was that I was, you know, but I was like, why is this still going on? So, I mean, I get it, because that's, you know, in sort of where I've come.
It's all that stuff that needs to know, like, there's a demand for certainty in the brain. And so it will immediately put all the little pieces together to see if what comes plus this, plus that, minus this, plus that equals whatever the answer is. But ultimately, soul, heart, divinity already knows the answer. But can we be in that place? And can we operate in a place of confidence and groundedness in that place? And it's just practice. The more we practice, the easier it gets.
Yes.
Yeah, I go back to the change your thinking thing, and what's occurring to me is it's change what you believe, change what input you're believing, change
what you're aligned with.
Yeah, and change what you adopt as your thought. I mean, if the brain tells you a bunch of stuff and you adopt that as your thought, as your belief, as your, the way to move forward, then that's one thing. And if you can stand and observe it and go, look at that, huh? And
Look
then
at
you can
that.
adopt the idea of, I know it's all good. I know that life is on my side. These are the things I know. And so that becomes my thought, if you will.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's really about changing your source of information.
Yes. Changing that to which you were listening. What are you giving power to? Like,
Right.
if you're afraid, you're giving power to the fear, as opposed to giving power to where the power already would be, which is in your soul, which is beyond anything you could ever fear about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask a different question, because we started out with your examples of the healer person you were watching, and then I read I didn't have any information. The publicity department did not send it to me, so I went on LinkedIn and went to Mr. Google and found a little bit about you and your history, and so I'm just wondering, like, you say you work with all different kinds of illnesses, ailings, and that you do healing work, and I'm just wondering, like, when did you know that was yours to do, and how did you figure that out?
Oh gosh, it wasn't a figuring, it was an occurrence. I was doing my graduate internship. I was in graduate school working on my master's degree in recreation administration, which is kind of a combination of psychology, sociology, kinesiology, physical ed, study of peak experience, all that stuff kind of rolled into one. And I was taking a nap the first few days at this summer camp where I was going to be for the entire summer. And I got this download. I was reading some spiritual books at the time, and I got this download that basically said, if you do this, people's pain will go away. Try this visualization. I'm like, I'd never done anything like that before, but the guy who was sharing the cabin with me was the son of a PhD parapsychologist. So I told him, this is going to sound weird. And I told him what I had just experienced. It doesn't sound weird to me, and I've got a headache. Let's see if it works. And I worked on him, and his headache went away. That night, a guy came in who had a migraine. I worked on his migraine, and it went away. And I just kept doing this all summer, working on 200 different people, and almost everybody got a positive result. Like 2 people out of 200 didn't get a positive result. So that's where it started. And I've been doing healing and energy work ever since. And after recreation, I realized I couldn't make a living in recreation. So I ended up going back into the stereo business, doing high-end audio sales and then marketing, and then was a regional sales trainer, North American sales trainer, went back to retail. It's a long story. Ended up going back into retail to be closer to my now almost 32-year-old son. And the economy cratered my audio business back in 08, 09. Leaving me holding a whole bunch of debt and everything else. Said, well, if I'm going to struggle financially, what do I want to do? And through another series of synchronicities, I ended up dedicating my life to doing healing and energy work in November 2010. And within a week of that, a couple of really miraculous things happened, like taking care of a woman's herniated disc 2,000 miles away in Seattle. And the MRI that she had already scheduled in the follow-up, the MRI actually showed what looked like little sutures in the herniation from the previous MRI. I mean, this is bizarre stuff. And then I worked on another guy who had rheumatoid arthritis, and that person was freed of their rheumatoid arthritis after a 45-minute session. So I'm really clear, I'm not the one doing that. That's coming through me, not from me. So I call it the healed by spirit modality, because that's more accurate than the healed by Brian modality or whatever. But the point is, it's confirming that I am and we are vessels. So that's how it all got started. And it's all about being the vessel and dropping stuff out that's in the way of me being more present to the vessel that I am, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It does.
Absolutely.
So that's what got me
Absolutely.
on the path. And I can't think of anything more rewarding than facilitating someone else's healing and supporting people in working with the energy centers, the chakras that are there. I grew up Jewish, and there's this book called the Kabbalah, which talks about the same 7 energy centers, the same 7 life aspects and the philosophies. And they, that was discerned by the Hebrew Gnostics thousands of years after and thousands of miles away from where the chakra system talk started. So I think ultimately Source wants us to know this stuff. So when we tune in, we can receive that. But the way to tune in is the challenging part for most people, because they're identifying with this. When we identify with this as just this thing that's making a bunch of noise that sometimes serves us, but what we really are is the noticer of that, life gets better.
So this is your website and your book up on
Yeah, thanks for whoever pulled that up, producer guy. That's the book. It's called Access the Real You, Touching Your Divinity and Applying Its Wisdom to Your Life. And the beauty of the book is that it's really practical. I call it practical woo-woo. It's talking about really abstract, confusing, potentially things that the brain can't really know. It's like you can't touch being, but you can know it when you're experiencing it. But as soon as you go, hey, I'm in being, then you're not there anymore.
So, and is the book primarily to teach you about the possibilities, or is it to teach you how to do it, or is it?
It's about how to get there. Yeah, the book is all about how to touch your own divinity, how to access that place, and then what to do when you get there. So, for example, as you notice the thoughts your brain is generating, you're going to notice that there are issues. And what defines any issue is that there's a point A, which is what's so. I think I'll use this finger since it reads left to right on the screen. There's a point A, which is the facts of the matter, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Then there's this other thing I call point B, which is what I'd prefer instead of point A. So any issue, by definition, has a what so and a what I'd prefer instead. Now, most people may get stuck in that, but ultimately it's not about what the facts are. It's about, why is this other thing a preference? So can I do a little self-study around, why is that a preference for me? Why is that something I feel like I need? What's the unmet expectation or unfulfilled expectation? What's the unfulfilled preference or whatever? So if I can study that, I can do a little self-study in what my values are and what means something to me and why. And if something means a lot to me, that must mean I care a lot about it. That's another principle stated in the book, is it always hurts exactly as much as you care. So it's not about not caring. It's about noticing that you do care and drilling down to the love that's sourcing all of it. And can I get to that place of self-love and self-forgiveness, love and forgiveness of others? And in that divinity place, all that becomes more readily accessible. So you've got issues, point A, point B. And then once you identify there's this point B, what do you do with that? So there's 3 steps that I outline in the book, which is I can work on resolving the issue. If I've done all the resolving work I can, and there's still things that are still there, like resolving the divorce that I was in. I couldn't resolve the marriage, so I got a divorce, but then I had to refine. So it's resolve and refine who I'm going to be about the thing I couldn't resolve. And if I've done all the resolving work I can and that's not handled, and I've done all the refining of who I'm going to be work that I can do, and there's still some stuff that remains, I get to release the rest. So it's resolve, refine, release. And there's a chapter dedicated to each one of those in the book on what's this resolve work about, and what's this refine work about, and what's this release work about. Forgiveness, for example, is release. The brain's going to generate all these conditions. The way I talk about release is I'll demonstrate it by dropping this pencil, okay? It's like, that's release. In case you missed it, that's release. So all of these brain-generated conditions keep us holding on to the thing that we need to release. Forgiveness is a prime example. If I can work on this one, oh, well, what are people going to say? Or what if it doesn't work out? Or that guy did this again? And all these different brain-generated conditions, even if I've done most of the release work, but there's one little thing left, I can't release. Forgiveness or release is letting all of the brain-generated conditions go. And that doesn't mean that you release and it's done. Like I have an ex-wife that I'm not really, even now, I'm still doing work around and I'm releasing. It's like, yeah, but then she does the next thing and I get to release that. And then she does the next thing, I get to release that. This is life. I mean, things are going to come up and we are going to have preferences and desires and needs, but how much of them are real and how much of them are just brain generated?
Right. So what it brings up for me when you said that, because I was thinking, okay, so this is something that everyone needs to learn. Like this is something we should teach from a very young age. And
exactly.
Then, if we taught it from a very young age, is it even, I mean, is that even possible? Is that even possible? I know
hope so, because I've already written the kids' book that I haven't put out there yet. And the kids' book is the book distilled to 25 lines on 25 pages. And it's ultimately making eye contact with yourself. Like kids can look into a mirror, and if they look into the mirror long enough, they're going to know who's looking at them in the mirror and who's behind the eyes in the mirror. And that's the essence of the kids' book.
Well,
kids
different
can
stages,
definitely learn this.
Definitely little kids, but like if you came to a teenager with it now, they're so stuck in the middle of all of, you know, what's true and what's not true, and it's true in their world, and if it doesn't, you know, have a name brand on it, it's not true. And
right, yeah, literally.
Yeah,
better have somebody's logo on it.
Right. Yeah, well, it's fascinating. That's exciting that there's a kids book. I love that.
It's coming.
It's very.
I'm just waiting for the illustrator to complete the illustrations, and then it'll be out there. But yeah, the thing about kids and knowing is when you can look at your child in the eye and make that eye contact and make the eye contact, the capital eye contact, as well as the eye contact, then connection happens. And in that place of my divinity, I'm able to access the kid's divinity, and the kid's able to access mine, and suddenly things get very real. Because kids, I mean, let's face it, adolescents are hormones with feet.
Right.
So they've got all sorts of stuff going on all day, and their lives generally kind of feel a little out of control anyway. But if we can teach them, hey, you're not your brain, you're not your body, you're not all this energy wanting to go all day. You're the noticer of all of that. And if they take a few weeks to really take the time to come to know that part of themselves, then the other parts of themselves suddenly become less important. Because what every kid really wants is to know the answer.
Well, what everybody, every adult wants to know is to know the answer.
Know the answer. So
what
if we can get in touch with that part that knows the answer, beyond comparison, beyond justification, beyond the becauses, we can really get grounded in a very powerful place. And I believe our young people are born with that more than we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You can look into a 5-year-old's eyes or a newborn. That newborn pops out in 2023. That kid's lit up and ready to go from the moment pops out of mom.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The rest of us have had to work a bit.
And just a bit. I think one of the key things that you've said that I think people can take away today, as well as many other things, but is just start with looking in people's eyes. Start with staying connected, and not to beat yourself up, but really notice. Just notice when it's hard to stay connected and where you look and what you do. And just becoming aware of that will keep you coming back and going deeper if you choose to accept that mission. You know?
That's it. That's the game right there.
Yeah.
The other thing is to remember it's a game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there's no lose in the game. It's just either I'm better at it today or I'm not better at it today.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I can't believe how fast this time went.
I know, right?
Absolutely.
And I didn't even know anything about you. Now that I know, there's even more to talk about.
Have me back. I'll be glad to come back.
You are welcome back. Okay. So is information we need to share about Brian?
You can go to accesstherealyou.com if you'd like to buy the book directly from me. If someone buys the book directly from me, I'll sign it and write a personalized note inside the front cover. If you want to go to Amazon or Kindle, you can order it there. It is available on Kindle. If it's a commercial bookseller, there's a company called Ingram that commercial booksellers will purchase through. I'm also available there. The book's also available there. So get the book, read the book. The first third is how to get there, how to access the real you. The second third of the book is practice and application and exercises, if you will. And the third segment of the book is just, oh, wow, this is all the different parts of my life that I can apply this to, and various perspective pieces on how we use words and wordplay and different things like that, because words are pretty important too.
Okay.
So
well,
Brian,
great.
I want to go back to Brian for a second, and that is, I noticed that Bonnie Gonzalez had a lot of questions. She said something about reading your book. Bonnie, have you purchased the book already? We have a question for you. Did you go in and do that while we were online? If she's still here, she'll tell us.
If you did, thank you.
Yeah, if you did, thank you very much. And if not, I think Brian would like to thank you with a personalized signed copy. No,
Gladly.
she has not. So I think she has definitely had the best questions today, right?
I think so. I think Bonnie's kind of earned a book here, maybe.
Oh, that Bonnie, she's a winner.
She's a
All right,
winner.
Bonnie, you're getting a book.
Woo-hoo.
Make sure that Reverend Gil and Robyn get your address, and I'll mail you a copy of the book.
Yeah, tell us what part of the world to send it to.
Awesome. Yeah, I think Bonnie's got a teleportation device that she's not telling us about to get Ireland to California in that quick a time and still be fresh enough to go to Mexico.
Well, and you ask all the good questions. So Bonnie is the winner of the book today because she has asked good questions and engaged with us, and we're so grateful. And I'm also grateful to our producer, Michael Mangus, for putting those good questions up there. And there's Wayne, who's always with a philosophical comment that makes us all dive deeper. And then there's Brian and Gil. Thanks everybody for being here. And just remember, when you're looking in somebody's eyes, it's another way to rock the love. So rock the love this week, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye now.
Take care.